Venezuela, the International World Anti-Fascist Youth Congress kicked off with the participation of 500 international guests. Several global leaders ensured that they will comply with the arrest warrant issued against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister W.H.O Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes against the Palestinian population. And the World Health Organization briefed that Israeli occupying forces made at least 15 hospitals run out of service following their attacks on Lebanon. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll be with the news. In Venezuela, the International War Anti-Fascist Youth Congress kicked off with the participation of 500 international guests from 70 countries. The meeting will last until November 23rd at the Convention Center of the Generalissimo Francisco Miranda's Air Base. The participants will discuss in 7 working tables on urgent topics such as gender-based violence, the forms of struggle of the student movements, workers' rights, the environment, youth organizations to fight fascism, and the models of oppressions of the capital, among others. President-elect Donald Trump nominated former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi to lead the Justice Department after his first choice, Matt Gaetz, withdrew his name over the 6 trafficking allegations. Bondi has been an outspoken defender of Trump. She was one of his lawyers during his first impeachment trial, and she was among a group of Republicans who showed up to support Trump at his New York hush money criminal trial that ended in May with a conviction of 34 felony counts. Gaetz stepped aside and continuing fallout over a federal sex trafficking investigation that cast a doubt on his ability to be confirmed as the nation's chief federal law enforcement officer. The United Nations underscored that girls and women worldwide are prone to suffer from food insecurity as a result of the climate crisis. The UN advanced that in the worst-case scenario, over 236 million girls and women will face food insecurity, and 158 million others could fall into poverty due to the climate crisis impact. Meanwhile, other figures estimate that girls and women in sub-Saharan Africa spend 200 million hours a day just fetching water, equivalent to the daily working hours of the entire workforce of countries such as the United Kingdom. But over UN Women highlight that nations must consider climate financing and make a plan of actions aligned with climate quality to find out need solutions for these global sources. Russian President Vladimir Putin praised on Friday the test carried out with the hypersonic Horizontal ballistic missiles and ordered the missiles to be put into mass production. The statement was made one day after the head of state addressed the nation in relation to the Ukrainian attack with US missiles, when he stressed Moscow's right to fire the missiles at military facilities in countries whose weapons are being used by Ukraine.
The test was a success. I congratulate you on that. And as has already been said, we will continue these tests, including in combat conditions. Depending on the situation and the nature of the security threats posed to Russia, it is necessary to establish mass production. Let's assume that the decision to mass produce this system has been made.
The spokespersons for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Li Yan, reporting International Criminal Court final judgments of Netanyahu and Gallant, urging the ICC to hold its cases grounded in inequality and justice.
China backs up every effort made by the international community on the Palestinian issue, which has to reach equity and justice, defend the authority of international law. China hopes that the International Criminal Court will uphold an objective and fair position, exercise its powers in accordance with the law, comprehend and apply the Rome Statute and general international law in good faith and in compliance with unified standards.
The United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF called for more support from international organizations for children in Myanmar who have been affected by armed conflicts, natural disasters, and the lack of humanitarian support. UNICEF detailed that at least 650 minors have been killed by 2024 as a consequence of the conflict's escalation that burst out in 2021 between the National Army and Myanmar groups. The UN entity warned that the increasing use of lethal weapons in civilian areas such as homes, schools, and hospitals leave Burmese children without safe places to shelter. So far, the clash have brought about over 3.4 million displaced, and 40% of them are children. In Laos, 6 tourists, including a teenager, have died from alleged poisoning due to the alcohol consumption. The relative of the 19-year-old Australian teenager regretted her death right after she was admitted to a hospital in Bangkok, where she had been transferred from Laos. Meanwhile, local authorities confirmed on Thursday evening the death of 28-year-old British tourist as well as another Australian, 2 Danish, and a young US citizen. Furthermore, local police officers report that several suspects have been arrested for the case. Let's take a very short break, but remember, you can now join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back from the South. Brazil's federal police filed formal charges against former President Jair Bolsonaro and 36 other collaborators from a coup attempt following his electoral defeat in 2022. Among the accused are the prominent figures in Bolsonaro's government, including former Minister Braga Neto, former Minister of the International Security Cabinet General Augusto Heleno, former Director of the Brazilian Intelligence Agency Alexander Ramajan, and President of the Liberal Party Valdemar Costa Neto. The investigation reveals a coordinated plot to subvert the democratic order and prevent the inauguration of the president-elect Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva. The President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, led the ceremony to commemorate the 8th anniversary of the spending of the peace agreement. During the commemoration in the Bolivar Square, the Colombian president stressed that in these 8 years, the agrarian reform has not been achieved, assuring that this is due to the lack of will on the sides involved. In this sense, President Petro detailed that 300,000 hectares have been allocated to the peasants out of the 3 million that were agreed upon. In addition, the Colombian head of state emphasized that it is necessary to change the norms so that the agreement can be fulfilled in order to achieve total peace in the country.
The political process did not allow, with sufficient forcefulness, the application, the implementation of the peace process in reality. And that is why today, there are issues that are far from being fulfilled. Despite the efforts of this government, agrarian reform is still far from being achieved. The overall data, using various regulatory mechanisms that have been in force for decades, they were made in order not to carry out an agrarian reform, but we use them to carry out an agrarian reform. We have a global figure of 300,000 hectares delivered to peasants out of the 3 million that were agreed upon. That is to say, with this government, it reached 10% compared to the previous government. The difference is from 300,000 to 4 or 5,000.
The Colombian president also assured that it is necessary to change the norm so that peace agreements can be fulfilled in the country.
The FARC, in spite of all the criticism of the Colombian society, I have some, it is not the case. Someday we will write books if they let us. But the FARC in 2016 told the Colombians that it was time to stop the killing, that it was time to help each other. And there are some answers there in the Congress, not from the majority, and in the streets as well, that what they invite is to kill us again. I think that this government should deepen the thesis of the policy of love, which is for everyone, and to say frankly that here the only policy that allows us to survive as a nation and as humanity is to help each other, and in this case, to help each other is to change the rules so that the peace agreement can be quickly fulfilled, and by keeping our word, we can achieve total peace in Colombia.
Mexico's gross domestic product increased 1.1% in the third quarter of the current year, 2024. The National Institute of Statistics and Geography told that the gross domestic products of primary activities grew by 3.7%, tertiary activities by 2.1%, and secondary activities by 0.4%. In this sense, at an annual rate and with a sectionally adjusted series, the economy advances 1.6% in real terms. Likewise, during the first 9 months of the year 2024, the gross domestic products grew 1.5% compared to the same period in previous year 2023. Power outages continue in Ecuador, causing a drop in domestic sales and industrial productions, in addition to affecting the daily life of the inhabitants of the country. The Ministry of Energy and Mines announced a national blackout scheduled for Friday to Sunday, and according to the report, the blackouts will continue for 8 interrupted hours daily. The Internal Revenue Service reports sales and commercial activities decreased by 0.7% in September 2024 alone. Meanwhile, experts point out that it is possible that this trend is in the economic will decrease even more in the last month of the year. Venezuela commemorates the 4th year of the approval of the anti-blockade law with a meeting of social leaders at the Teresa Carreño Theater. The event began at 9 a.m. local time and will attend by political analysts and members of the executive cabinet who intend to evaluate the progress achieved nationwide despite the unilateral measures imposed by the U.S. against the country. This will also discuss how the imperialist countries have tried to sabotage Venezuela's economic, social, and political stability in the last few years. The anti-blockade law was approved in 2024 by the Constituent National Assembly to establish the legal tools to mitigate and reduce the effects of the U.S. sanctions against the Venezuelan people. Let's take our last break, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to watch all interviews, top stories, special broadcasts, and more. Subscribe button and active the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. With financial breakdown, go away. Welcome back. And we regain the topic. As the first date of the International World Anti-Fascist Youth Congress is underway in Caracas, we go live for updates with our correspondent Belén de los Santos. Hi Belén, hello, and give us your remarks.
Hello studios, we continue here in Caracas as the Youth Congress, the Anti-Fascist Congress,
that is gathering here in the Venezuelan capital is underway. We've been reporting with the testimonies, we've been hearing from different people from around the world. As we have been saying, over 1,000 delegates have gathered in Caracas and will continue to gather tomorrow as well to discuss the most relevant topics regarding the social context that we are living in right now worldwide, and in the struggle against fascism, and also exchanging experiences and bringing their visions from different corners of the world. And in this case, we are joined by Shane Savory, a student from St. Lucia. Welcome, Shane. Thank you for being here with us in teleSUR English. Please tell us your experience at this Congress. How has the day been like, meeting delegates from all over the world? What's your experience so far?
Well, thank you so much for having me. So I arrived in Venezuela on Wednesday, and honestly, coming into it, I didn't have a ton of expectations. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go into it and experience it for myself. The first thing that I've realized is just how massive this is. I mean, I come from a very tiny island in the Caribbean. I mean, Caracas is bigger than my entire country, so just taking all of that in has been so interesting. But it's also been really interesting being somebody who is from the Caribbean community. We have these very close ties with Venezuela, and a lot of what you study at school and what you see in the news can be one way, but then coming here and actually seeing the place for yourself and actually meeting people and talking to people, it's an entirely different perspective. So being here and being able to talk not just with Venezuelans, but from people from all around the world and being able to hear so many languages in one place, it's been an extremely enlightening experience, and I'm so glad that I came.
Exactly. So we've been hearing from delegates from all over the world with their own particular experiences of what the anti-imperialist struggle, the anti-fascist struggle means for them. So you come from St. Lucia. I would like to ask you, for this Caribbean country, in your experience, what does the anti-fascist movement mean in your case?
I think that as a very small developing country, we're still in the process of finding our place in the world, especially among us who are, young people. I'll be voting in my first election in the next couple of years. So among my peers, I think it's really important that we start to find that footing to understand what is going on in different places around the world, despite what certain media may be or what our parents might believe and things like that. So I'm really just learning about the experiences of so many people around the world whose lives have been shaped by so many political movements and so many things that have been happening worldwide, and learning how all of that is connected. So it's not only just an experience to learn about how others are living and how we can understand and help them and what we have in common, but I also think that it's important for my country, which is less than 50 years old, that we can understand how we can stay on the right path of government and how the youth can lead the country moving forward.
And do you see a hopeful youth in that sense? We're living in a very particular world context, and a lot of the media coverage and really a lot of the things that are happening around the world are so difficult that some may think that we are in a sort of like apocalyptic era. However, we have the youth coming together, and of course we're seeing different alternatives and perspectives of future. How do you see that future as part of the young generation?
I think that this generation is very interconnected, especially with being able to communicate with people from all around the world through social media and being able to educate ourselves in that way. So I find that a lot of young people that you meet now worldwide are more politically active than ever. And if we have a question, if there's something that we want to know, that it's easier than ever for us to just find that out. So I think that it really is just a matter of young people being more curious about it, and having that kind of intellectual vitality of wanting to understand more, of being able to compare and think for themselves. So all of the information and all of the resources that we need to become more politically active are there. It's really just a matter of young people having that strength within them to go out there and figure out what it is and then take action.
Thank you, Shani, for joining us here. That was our comrade from St. Lucia. Just one more perspective of the ones that we have been hearing at this Youth Congress, the Anti-Fascist Congress that Caracas is holding, and we will continue to gather around this perspective from different corners of the world on how to think and continue building in the struggle against fascism. Now we go back to you. Thank you, Belen, for all the information you gave us. And now we continue with our news. In Lebanon, at least 15, the World Health Organization's my partner briefed that Israeli occupying forces have made at least 15 hospitals I don't know what's happening. Made 15 hospitals run out of service following the attack in Lebanon. The World Health Organization's further recall having intel since 2017 as surveillance systems for attacks on World Health on healthcare as aid to monitor all hospitals. As a result, the organization describes critical the health crisis grounded in 37% of the Israeli strikes to lead to rise in the death toll of healthcare staffs and to the manufacturing of 15 hospitals out of the 153 ones. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials from Facebook and X and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.